right. Welcome to JM Live, JM Online Live. My name's Chris. I am the operations manager at JM, and I have Ted. Ted, you want to wave? Ted is our search ad specialist, so a lot of search engine ad platforms. And then we have Eric, the other person that we have here. He is our SEO specialist. We are coming to you from our homes. We are not in the office. So the reason that we want to do this
far away.
Yes, we have very socially distanced. So the reason that we wanted to do this today is that the COVID-19 quarantine and the stay-at-home orders have forced businesses to operate remotely, and that limits in-person interactions. And so we've seen a lot of businesses interactions transition from in-person to online and digital sources. We wanted to discuss what businesses can do to shift to operating remotely and talk about unique approaches that we've seen and that need to be shared. So to start, probably the most high profile change in business has probably been restaurants so far, or places where you go dine in, where they have space where you go. And I'm starting to notice that there's a first phase, a first response, and the first response was people shutting the doors and laying people off. And now I'm starting to see there's a second response. Some of those businesses are now opening as they see what other restaurants have done to stay open. So like do takeout and delivery. Also, we're starting to see some states change the laws or respond to the laws differently. Some states are allowing mixed drink and tap beer delivery, which would usually be an open container law violation. So guys, what have you been seeing? What ideas that have been interesting to you revolving around as this rolls out? So phase one is some businesses close. If phase two is those businesses open back up and the businesses that stayed open are pivoting and shifting their responses, like what have you guys been seeing that's been interesting or piqued your attention?
Who's talking first? I'll go first.
Yeah, I can share first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to tell a story to start it off. Over the weekend, I didn't have any groceries. It was coming down to dinner time, and I decided, I'm going to go out to eat. And like everybody else, I'm really trying to support local. And so I get on my phone, get on the internet, and I'm searching for a restaurant near me. I live in downtown Omaha, so I'm thinking there's got to be a place that's got curbside, delivery, takeout, something like that. And the thing that was just blaring to me is I had no idea who was open, and I had no idea where to go. I think like the way that we have moved throughout the internet for however many years, like we've all gotten really accustomed to knowing exactly where to go to figure things out. So my next step was to go to Grubhub, right? And I found a place that, I won't call this business out, but they weren't open, but they were on Grubhub and still accepted my order. And so long story short, what's been happening to me and everybody else is the over communication from brands, the constant emails, the constant text messages, and we can find them annoying, but guess who I knew was open? It was Chipotle. And these guys know I'm a big Chipotle fan, right? And like when they show up on my phone as an email or a text, I could think, wow, this is annoying, right? But I knew they were open. And so the moral of that story is that we would talk about today is like over communicate and be very, very clear about your essentials, which is, are you open? What are your hours? And how can you get your product or services? So yeah, that's like the first thing that just screamed at me as far as a blimp in the restaurant industry.
Yeah. One that stands out to me, So I follow a coffee roaster on Instagram, and they made a big post talking about how they closed and how they had to let, like, they have a few coffee shops. They let, I think, 40 some people go, and they remained with 6 after that. And they were sharing their story. I guess let me frame this a little bit. Usually we would advise people to not to be careful focusing on you while you're sharing while you're reaching your customers. So in this case, posting on Instagram. But it caused a big response in that post. Like there was an enormous feed, and everyone was like talking in that feed, which kind of had the reverse effect. Like I almost wonder if this is one of those, we're all going through this, and to see, a community kind of establishment responding in a way that was harmful for their customers, just kind of come out of the woodwork. And everyone knew that they were closing, that everyone who goes to that shop knew they were closing. And then later they actually reopened with a curbside pickup of like bulk beans and coffee drinks. So to the point to communicating, it probably wouldn't have been the way that a marketer would have advertised you to communicate, but it really came from like a personal place, a place that resonated with their audience. And I thought that was really interesting how that worked out.
So one thing that has kind of
Eric,
come
do
to
you have any
mind
thoughts? Yeah.
as Ted's been talking about, over communicating, and that's that Google and Bing and Yelp, like Google primarily, but the other platforms are starting to catch up on making some changes to allow businesses to make it more clear that they're open, that they're delivering, or something like that. For example, Google is now allowing you, if you have a Google My Business property, they're allowing you to change the name of your business to include what services are available. So it can say, Sam's Steakhouse delivery available, or curbside pickup, or something like that. Whereas before, that would not have been allowed under the guidelines of a name of your business. And there's some other things that you can do in there too. And we just posted a blog post that can help you out with some of that. I think also, first of all, the reason we see restaurants go down so fast, or before basically everybody else, is because the margins in that industry are so razor thin. If they're off by a week, then they have to start laying people off. But also we see them coming back because it seems like they start changing their thinking of some is better than none. And so a lot of restaurants here in Seward, where I'm at, small town Seward, there's not a lot of restaurants, but still, like, they can't have their dining rooms open, or most of them have made that choice. And so, but then they switch to curbside pickup. A bar that's here in town that kind of positions themselves on a higher end bar. So mixology kind of drinks and good food. So the back of their business is against an alley. So they turned the alley into literally a drive-through. And as far as I know, that's done fairly well for them. They hold regular events that are like featuring this food and stuff. And it sounds like they're filling their calendar, or filling their evening with drive-through pickup. And then that same business also spaced out the tables, and on certain tables put signs there saying closed for social distancing. So they're actually allowing people to come into their dining room and serving them. It's just, their capacity, it was already pretty low, and it's a lot lower. But again, I think they're changing their thinking from, we can't meet our margins, we can't meet that, but something is better than zero, which I think is kind of interesting. I don't know how that works out long-term for them being, a restaurant, but I think that's instructive, that kind of changing their frame of mind.
Yeah, I feel like JM, we have an advantage that, anyone who's in an industry that isn't the front line has an advantage, because we see this experiment playing out with all the businesses that are immediately impacted. I think one of the things that's really stood out to me is what these businesses are willing to do to change. It's just today, there's it must be food and drink. Sorry, but like there's a distillery that I follow. They they have partnered with New Belgium and a shipping company to create hand sanitizer. I thought that was brilliant. I mean, I don't exactly know how you make hand sanitizer, but if you think, you could say they're in the beverage industry, or you could say that they're in like a packaging industry. So like, how do you think differently about like the industries that you bridge, and like where is the demand and how can you fill it? None of that. Who can you partner with? New Belgium has the big name. They're the, I think, second or third biggest craft brewery in the U.S. The distillery probably is better suited to creating alcohol, and the shipping company. Like I thought that was brilliant. That these pretty big companies, the distillery is Leopold Brothers. You should go buy their whiskey. It's great. It's interesting to me how these big businesses are all. Well, Leopold's not that big, but New Belgium and R&L, like they're big. It's like they're willing to shift. And they've got the means to do it. And like, so what does that mean for us? Like on the smaller end, like how much are we willing to change, and like what's our margin for doing that?
That, and it there's a brewery in Omaha that made a similar move to start making hand sanitizer. And there's two things about that come to mind. First of all, for local small businesses, maybe don't have the means to have that kind of massive change, or even like retail locations, they're not making anything, so they can't do that. But maybe their suppliers can or could or already are. You know, hand sanitizer or masks, if any of your products are made of materials, maybe your suppliers are already considering that. And that could make you the local source for that kind of thing. So I think there's a lot more potential there among your supply chain than maybe people have realized. But also the second thing that comes to mind is not just thinking about how to keep business going between you and your customer, but also thinking about the community your customer is a part of, and seeing what you can do without any profit motive at all. Seeing what you can do to benefit that community during this weird, bizarre time.
Yeah. You know.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just going to add to that. So I think the reason why like we find this fascinating and why that is a good brand move is that in order for people to be like attracted to a brand or to a company, what's really important is defining the villain. Right? Like if you were to say, fill in the blank, what blank is doing to our customers is wrong, right? And so previously, you know, prior to this pandemic, you know, there could have been something to fill in that blank. And now at this moment, there is a new villain. And so when it comes to a brand shifting, it's how do you now focus your company's plan around this new villain, right? And so I think not only is that really going to be helpful for shifting into generating revenue, but also shifting your brand into a movement, something that is going to make your customers attracted to your brand. And I think that's very doable right now. We talked about it the other day. The window for connecting with your customers is as big as it's ever been. There's this we're in this together feeling right now that seriously can bond you with your customers to where there's a nostalgia to your brand. And so, you know, everybody's talking about finding opportunity right now, and that is going to be a key player to like really connecting with those customers on that deep, meaningful level, to where they are avid fans 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
You know, we talked about the other. I'll let you go, Eric.
Okay, Ted, you're reminding me of my old days as a debate coach, because there's an enemy that's exactly what I would teach kids because you're trying to tell a story. And there's really basic, simple, low-level ways to itemize certain things that are necessary for a story. And that can be done several different ways. But one way that I would always teach people to think about it is, yes, number one, there's always an enemy. There's always a bad guy, however you articulate that. So figure out who or what that is. There's always somebody that needs saving. Whoever or whatever that is, figure out that. And then there's always got to be a hero, somebody or something to do the saving. And that could be you, or it may not be. Maybe you have some special connection to the hero. But knowing those three things kind of helps you put together the story that you're trying to tell. And, you know, I don't want to turn us into kind of like cynical storytellers about putting businesses in a vital position with customers, but as a way of thinking about what can I do, I think that could be a really helpful way to think about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to move on to another point here. So let's say that there's a business out there that they are known for their in-person service. I can think of a couple clients off the top of my head that they know that when someone walks in the door, and if they can just meet them, they're going to be a customer for life. Since it's harder to meet face to face, how can these businesses uphold their service standards going online? So they're distancing themselves from their customers in person, and those opportunities to have those impacts are fewer and farther between. What can they do to continue to give that spectacular service?
Yeah, like quick, simple steps that I think most business owners are going to be behind on is being very competent on social, understanding all the platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok even. I mean, though we all know that kids are on TikTok, we view them as kids. It is not weird for a 45, 50-year-old business owner to be on there. And there are very few. And so just talking about TikTok real quick, the sooner the better.
Yeah.
If you were the first one there, then you are going to be the lawn care guy for the entire platform. So getting comfortable with those platforms is for sure a priority. And along that, getting comfortable with being on video and doing things like Zoom, building your speaking skills for online. It's a little bit of a different ballgame. You can see us, maybe we jump in front of each other and we're still fine tuning our skills, but getting really good at talking and speaking virtually. And I would say my third point on that is just flat out communicating your deliverables. I think that that's one of the most slept on things. So that in-person interaction, right? There's intangibles that your customer will feel, right? Like a chemical reaction of love, of companion. Most times the customer won't even acknowledge those feelings. You know what I mean? To where now that we're online and it's going to be even harder to make that connection, just communicate on your website. This is the feeling we give you. Like, we give you an at-home feeling, and expressing that through words on your website can also help bridge that gap.
What's your thought, Eric?
Yeah, I completely agree, especially video. I mean, everybody's kind of getting on board with that. We're at a unique point in technological history now where we can assume the majority of people have access to video platforms. And so and that's about the closest thing we're going to get right now to replacing physical presence. Now, we know that it doesn't replace physical presence at all, but it's also one of the unique times, a few weeks from now, we're all going to be wearing masks over our face. So video will be the opportunity to actually see what somebody looks like without the mask on. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, that'll make it even more powerful and personal. And also there's this story of going to restaurants again. There's a story in Philadelphia of this local restaurant who is doing delivery. And I assume it's a pretty nice restaurant. The way they're doing it is the restaurant owner is FaceTiming with his clients, with his customers before and after delivery to mimic the whole tableside service. And I thought that was brilliant.
Oh,
it's
cool.
inefficient, but who the hell cares, right? I mean, that's the thing. And it's probably, that's why I say it's probably a little bit higher end restaurant. He's charging a little bit more. That doesn't mean that he's making more necessarily, but he understands that there's a whole environment that he wants to recreate as best he can. And he's taking that extra step to do it. And you know what? Everybody who is buying food from that restaurant loves him for it. I guarantee. They're always going to go back to that restaurant whenever the doors open.
Oh, yeah. And just the touch, the care that he pours into that, the amount of work that he puts into that. You know, from my standpoint, I am more centered around the website versus all the platforms around the website. And if you think of your interaction with your client as ground zero for your relationship, so now you're removed. Ground zero is now media. So, and while that could be Facebook, you know, as a platform, or that could be Zoom as a platform, I think of it as text, as in photos, as in audio, as in video. Make that. And you probably aren't going to have the writing skills that you would like. You probably aren't going to have the video recording presence that you would like. But I think that you have to practice. Every time you do it, you get better. I mean, here we are, you know, we're trying our handed video. Next time, hopefully it'll be better. But I guess what I asked my clients to think about is, like, if you're going to be improving your website, so often that starts with your content, not with what my developers code into it. So that's your pictures. Are your pictures good? Does your message say what you would say and give that effect when someone walks in your door and you shake their hand and you like look them in the eye? Like, maybe you create a video where you like looking someone in the eye. So yeah, I always revolve around the media, the type of media or mediums that you would produce.
Yeah, one
any
note
other thoughts on that?
Yeah, one note on that, Chris, that the bar for production quality is lower than it ever has been. One exception is YouTube, right? Because YouTube's been around forever, and it's the expected level is a lot closer to like TV quality. But everywhere else, including Facebook, the expectation of actual video quality and being a cinematographer is so low, you can't go wrong. And of course, there's a learning curve. We're going to get better at this. This is the first time we've done this. There's always a first time. You're going to get better the second, third, and fourth time. Those are what's important. It's not the first time. Nobody's going to remember that. Nobody cares. But doing it over and over again, you'll learn the little tricks. And besides that, just do your thing and, talk about what your business is about and what you care about for your business and for your customers. After that, it'll take care of itself.
Yeah. I want to make sure that I get this question asked because it kind of flips the table from being the person who has the business to being the customer and like what that impact is. So for you guys, what has been the most creative or impactful change that a business has made that has allowed you to continue to be a frequent customer?
Yeah, that's a really hard question. And the reason why that's hard is because a lot of the businesses that I was a frequent customer of, I no longer am. I mean, I think it's something that I'm glad that we are forcing this question up because it's something that a lot of people don't have figured out. And perhaps we don't either. The business that I am still connected to are two that are sticking to me, and I think they're the same two for most of us. That is grocery stores and Amazon. Now, I think what's special about grocery stores, and I won't talk about what's special about Amazon as much because we know that, but what's special about grocery stores is that there is no alternative, right? And of course there's different types of grocery stores, like different brands, but there's no getting what we need. There's no getting that product or that service from a different entity at the moment, right? And what I think is most important about that is that it's not really what they did. It's about the demand that they're supplying. And so it draws me back to your example, Chris, about how now a brewing company is dipping into hand sanitizer. We all can say you should do this, you should do that, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, there's a supply that it needs to be filled, and that's something as simple as eating food.
Yeah.
I'd say for me, the
Unless
bar.
we all turn into farmers.
The bar here in town was what was most significant to me, because they never shut down. They didn't cancel. They have a dinner event almost every week. They didn't cancel any of it. They just immediately, when things started happening and they could see the writing on the wall about places shutting down and all that, they just immediately went into, okay, how can we make this work, and thinking that way rather than and maybe they laid some people off, I don't know, but instead of just shutting the whole thing down, they just immediately went into how can we still get this to people. And I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah.
There's some other places here in town that are still operating, but only on a drive-through basis. So that's kind of how businesses around here have kept going.
I think for me, so our family, we have some tummy issues. So when it comes to food, it's a little hard in general. But there is a restaurant that my wife was following that was getting ready to have an episode of Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives go live. And so they were putting all this money into their marketing and their outreach. And so once the governor, so I'm in Colorado, once the governor told them that they could not have people in their restaurant, they were devastated. So they were one of those companies like teetering on the line of like, do we close? Do we stay open? But they went to social media and shared their story, and my wife and I looked at each other. It's like, well, like we want to support like these businesses in our community, so let's do like Friday takeout night, But again, to Ted's point earlier, we had to figure out who was open. But now that we know that they're open, they have also pivoted a little bit more, and like they're taking some more advantages. So Easter coming up, they are offering paleo Easter baskets, which to think that I could find one of those for my son in the first place is like, I would never have thought that. But the fact that they can now get it to me, like that's a really like cool opportunity, especially in like a little bit of a niche where you are rare to begin with. So that's kind of along the lines of like, it's almost like a subscription idea. You can sign up for things in advance, or like the what are the mail boxes that you can get, like the subscription boxes. But this would just be a one-time thing. But I don't know, that one really resonated with me, so that I can celebrate Easter with my son just like normal,
I think that's a great example of the
Cool.
creative possibilities too. It's not just a matter of how do I get my product to still to the customer. I mean, that's important. It's not just about, what are they looking for right now? That's all valuable, but also it's, okay, what new thing can I give to my customers that they never even thought of before?
Yeah. That you never thought of before.
Yeah.
I mean, like as the business owner, I bet they never once thought we're going to get in the Easter basket game.
Right.
So
yeah, that's great.
cool. All right, guys. Well, thanks for talking today, and I guess we'll talk to you soon again.
Thank you.
Bye,
This was
Facebook.
fun.
Bye, guys.
Bye.